Next, I'd like to welcome Brigadier General Matt Braman to the podium. He's the Director of Army Aviation, Headquarters, Department of the Army, G357. I'm sure he's happy to be out of the Pentagon this morning. General Braman has been an Army aviator since 1995 and currently serves as the Headquarter DA's Central Coordination Point and Principal Army Staff Advisor for all things Army Aviation. General Braman.
All right, good morning. It is truly great to be out of the Pentagon for a few hours. It's great to see a lot of great mentors here. I guess, unfortunately for me, there's also many former directors of Army Aviation in the room, so I will try not to let you down. And I'm following my former boss, who was the director when I was his deputy a couple years ago. So I can tell you the office of the Director of Army Aviation, one, it's a unique place in the Army staff. We really represent the G3 and all things aviation to the senior leaders in the Army. But who are we? Some of you know this already. You've been intimately familiar with our office. You've been in there, but there's probably some that aren't. So just want to refresh a little bit for those who don't know. We are a small team of active duty officers, some warrant officers. We have a sergeant major. We have a few GS employees and some contractors, and we're there really to facilitate aviation operations. That's across fieldings, directives through X orders, to our MACOMs, our direct report units, our ASCCs, and all of our components. And we do this with somewhat limited authorities. I do have some authorities within the G3, but really what makes us essential and makes us valuable to the aviation enterprise is our role as the lead integrator in the aviation six-pack of the aviation GOSC. And so for those who don't know that, it's led by our aviation branch chief, Major General Gill, consists of our PEO Aviation, Dave Phillips, our CFT, Future Vertical Lift, Kane Baker. We've got Doc Smith down at TAPO. We've got Brian Morgan at the RSOAC, and we've got Major General Robinson at AMCOM, and then finally with me in DAMO AV. And we are your single source entry into the Army staff. And again, I talk about, we're important because of where we sit. And so we are the nexus here in DC of Army senior leaders, the Joint Staff, OSD, all the OEMs that are in the room here that have offices in DC or that come to DC, all of our MACOMs, our DRUs, our aviation service component commanders, all of our compos, Compo 2 and 3 in particular, that have presence here in DC. And then also, probably most important to us on the staff as we integrate is our board of directors across the river, Congress. And so we become that lead integrator to get you to talk to who you need to within the enterprise. So why are we important? Let's make no mistake, we exist solely for the advocacy of our ground force commanders' aviation requirements across the total force. And I always like to tell everybody as a friendly reminder, in DAMO AV, I have absolutely zero acquisition authority. However, I have a tremendous obligation and interest in advocating for the concepts, capabilities that are there on the street that are provided to make our force better. And so we are that person in that group of individuals to get you in touch with the right decision makers to advocate for the things going forward. So I'll tell you, if there's nothing else you remember from today, we have an open door in DAMO AV. The address is 3 Alpha 474. We want you to come in and talk to us about your capabilities, your concerns, and the things that we can then advocate across the GOSC to ensure that we make a great decision for Army Aviation in order to support our ground force. I can't promise you that you're going to get me if you come to the building, but we've got some great branch chiefs from our Ops and Readiness Division. We've got Colonel Kevin Easter from our Modernization Division. We've got Ray Santiago, and we just newly stood up our UAS division as a directive from the G3 as an 06 level directorate, Rick Poland. So please come see us. We will not say no. We'll get you scheduled and come on in. So today I just want to review a couple things for you, what's going on in the G3 world. We'll talk a little bit about the demand for Army Aviation. We'll hit on some of the safety topics that General Gill mentioned. We'll talk about where we are in the future design update for Army Aviation. Talk a little bit about UAS, counter UAS. I want to spend a little bit of time on foreign military sales and how important that is to us in the Army G3. And then I'll kind of finish off with just some of the fiscal constraints and environment we're operating in right now. And so from a demand for Army Aviation, let's be clear, it's not stopped. I remember the days of when we had multiple cabs deployed in two different environments within CENTCOM AOR, and we thought it was busy then. We were heavily utilizing our Compo 2, Compo 3 partners to provide those ground force commanders with the things they needed. And I think there's, in some instances, a thought that we're not that busy anymore. Well, we've got 12 active duty cabs today. 8 of 12 of those cabs are currently on assigned missions as we speak. That's a lot. And think about at least 4 cabs left. What are those 4 cabs doing? Well, 2 of those are on boats coming home from deployments, and 2 other cabs are getting ready to train and deploy to their next mission. So we are fully executing and utilizing the force structure we have right now to meet a portion of the demand that the ground force commanders and our combatant commanders need from us right now. And we're looking at targeted methods to greater use Compo 2 and 3. There's a cost to that. We heavily use them for almost 2 decades of using all of our compos. And so there is a reset period. It's time for us to modernize them and then get them geared up for their next mission. So they're still an integral part of what we're doing to meet those demands, but it has never been higher. All right, we talked safety a little bit. As the audience is probably well aware, it's been a pretty difficult year for Army Aviation. 14 Class A mishaps, 11 fatalities. The mishap rate's about double what our average has been over the last 10 years. Some of the things we found with the help of our really great team of investigators down at the Safety Center, as well as at the Readiness Center, as well as at Fort Novacell. 6 of the 14 accidents we suspect were due to loss of tail effectiveness or authority issues. The CSA directed us to do a stand-up back in the spring to focus on that phenomenon in particular, but also to review the way we're practicing and getting after our training requirements. So over the decades, it's no mystery to most people in this room, the aircraft, we have the same airframes we've had for 20 years. We've put more things on them over time. And as we modernize the fleet, we have gotten to really, we've gotten our crews involved in the modernization and the maximum capabilities of those aircraft. And we got to go back and look at the basics of what we do just from a stick and rudder standpoint. So the Aviation Center is a big part of that right now. The big thing is about a decade ago, we under-assessed pilots for reasons because we had started to slow down what we thought our requirements were overseas, and now we got to build back that capacity. And so we look at the talent across our force. We certainly are not lacking in talent in Army Aviation. We just need a better capacity and a bigger group of that talent. And it's going to take us a little while to get CW3s and CW4s back at the capacity we need to continue to train safely. And we're well on our way to doing that right now. Okay, FDU update. We made the decision, it started about 10 years ago, about how do we right-size the force as we come out of our GWAT requirements. We looked at how do we maximize our capabilities within the existing structure to get a better capability for our divisions. And so we're leading that effort across the Army to optimize that structure for large-scale combat operations. We published the XORD to begin this process in this past July. And so we're synchronizing that effort, and you'll start to see the first cabs transition in FY26. We're being very deliberate about how we do this. All of us in this room have probably remember the turmoil and the churn of ARI, doing it while in combat and in contact. And so we're being very deliberate about how we do this to, 1, take care of people principally, and 2, to make sure that our elements are ready to achieve their next mission. So what does that mean for the Army? We're taking 11 modular cabs that were designed, purpose-built to be a 1-for-1 replacement to go downrange in CENTCOM to 12 purpose-built cabs that really meet the division commander's requirements in LSCO. So that's a deliberate process that we talked about. So that new structure, what's it going to do for us? It's going to provide an initial gap where we lacked attack reconnaissance across all of our cab structures, and also sets conditions for us to fully implement future vertical lift endeavors, such as as FLRAA. So that's all going on, helps us set the conditions for FY 2030 and beyond. And one other thing going on with FDU is we've noticed that as the branch chief talked about, broken icons. If you've ever been part of the 25th cab or the 16th cab, you know we've got both brigades had elements displaced from their home stations in Alaska. So we recently stood up an 06 command there to take really resource control and span of control over for those organizations to make sure that they can do what they need to do for their Indo-PACOM boss, as well as be safely operated as aviators going forward. And so that's already begun. You'll see a headquarters that resemble somewhat what like the 12th Aviation Brigade currently looks like in Europe, but with a proper oversight and experience there to ensure that they can safely operate. Okay, let's talk a little bit about UAS and some of the initiatives. Obviously, the chief's been extremely clear to everyone he's talked to, but more importantly to us, is we need to accelerate and expand our unmanned capabilities within our formations. We're seeing this obviously through the proliferation of UAS systems in many conflicts around the world and hotspots, and we're learning from that. And DAMO AV really is responsible for synchronizing those efforts across the Army to ensure we meet the chief's intent. And that's for appropriate mix of low and high-end capabilities at multiple echelons. So we're looking at COTS and small UAS solutions. That's key to this effort. It's a central pillar to the chief's transformation and contact initiative. In FY24, so this past year, the chief directed us to establish a pilot program to provide 3 specific BCTs with funding to just go out and buy COTS off the shelf, off an approved list, allow them to experiment, innovate, and give some feedback back to the field. This buy, give, and inform model gets system upgrades into the hands of our soldiers so they can immediately begin training, experimenting, and building TTPs. At HQDA, we're looking for opportunities to scale success, expand fielding, and innovative capabilities, really by getting away from 20-year-long programs of record, be more flexible with funding methods going forward. So our brigade maneuver units no longer will be fielded with identical UAS systems. It will just allow us to really rapidly purchase the best technologies and then pivot to something that is working and divest of things that aren't meeting our requirements. So with UAS comes also within Army Aviation, our desire and our really requirement to look at the counter UAS capabilities available to protect our aviation force. So on the counter UAS side, we recognize that threat is only growing, and our airframes require a counter UAS capability to ensure survivability, certainly within LSCO. So DAMO AV, although not the lead for counter UAS, we at HQDA are looking for ways to integrate counter UAS in our platforms, working with DAMO Fires, who really has that lead effort on more holistic approaches to survive on the US saturated battlefield. Some of the things we're already looking into, Army Aviation's experimenting with dual mode APKWS systems as a method to provide the capability for the Apache. Continued development of that will actually proliferate all across the services. There's a lot of interest in our sister services and the Joint Force for that, as well as looking at things as simple as prox fuse on our 30mm weapon systems as well. So that's an area we need assistance from industry. What's out there, what can allow us to operate more safely in that environment with our aircraft. All right, talk a little bit about FMS. As General Gill mentioned at least twice previous, our greatest advantage over our competitors is our coalition of allies and partners by far. And when the U.S. goes to war, we don't do it alone. So a more lethal ready and interoperable coalition force really makes sure that we're less likely to lose on the battlefields of the future. And so the United States' foreign military sales program is key. It's a key contributor to that strength of our coalition. Our interoperability amongst the nations that we hold close as allies and partners. And we can see that today with efforts of lots of partners going out there to buy Blackhawks, Apaches, and Chinooks, as well as other things associated with Army Aviation. We also look at it as a way for sustainment. So increase capability and strengthening supply chains by expanding our partner capabilities across the globe, really to allow us to do things as simple as manufacture on site in foreign nations to replace items that are truly needed in our current fleet when we're deployed. So there's value to coming to talk to us if you're an OEM and you have an Army program of record. Again, we don't make those decisions about what goes to partner nations, but we facilitate that. We're the face of that with the customer when the decision is made. And so we're doing that globally around the world. And that's somewhat new for DAMO AV the last couple of years, but currently we've got 8 countries with FMS cases for UH-60 Blackhawks. We've got 5 countries with CH-47s, and the Apaches right now, 7 cases currently ongoing with probably another 5 in the works. From a scale, just to see how that's working, right now Australia has purchased 40 Blackhawks. That's huge for us in Indo-PACOM to expand that reach so we don't have to deploy an element there potentially. Look at Poland, 96 Apaches on the ticket to go to Poland. Think of that, that's multiple brigades out of our Army that don't have to be don't need a forward presence on a day-to-day basis. Can go over there for interoperability, for exercises, but it reduces our demand and requirements on the force. And Germany with the purchase of 60 CH-47 Block 2s. So that's huge. And those are just some of the cases out there going on right now. Allows us to really reduce requirements for us, build a more interoperable partner force, and be successful in the future battlefields. All right, I'll leave you with this. Obviously, on the fiscal environment standpoint, modernization of our aircraft to include integrating new platforms and technologies is necessary for the Army for the future fight. From a DC perspective, I'm keenly aware of the resource constraints placed on Army aviation to accomplish things we want to accomplish for our ground force commanders in the coming years. So as we seek to prioritize funding and key modernization efforts, we rely on our industry partners, some of you in the room here, to support those efforts. We need to optimize the size of our aviation fleets by divesting excess force structure and do that where we don't need the additional capability, but it does drain our resources to sustain those things over a period of time. And as we field new platforms, cost effectiveness will be a key determinant. We likely will not be able to replace old airframes, nor should we look to replace old airframes on a one-to-one basis. We should be looking at a new airframe that replaces capabilities beyond a single source replacement, 1 to 2, 1 to 4, and so on and so forth. And I would like to leave with this too, as General Gill also mentioned. I'm encouraged by the industry's adoption of MOSA across. That's key. The only way we're going to modernize in a rapid manner and adapt to the enemy and to technological advantages is us all to buy in. The MOSA concept allows us to do that quickly. So with that, last thing I'll tell you is 3 Alpha 474. Please come see us. We want to hear from you. We want to give you feedback. And it's been great spending the morning with you here, and we look forward to the discussions going on the rest of the day. Thanks.